Andre. Now, James is with me now in the studio, back from Iran. James, one of the key themes that we see coming through pretty clearly in that report is the distinct apathy of voters, their distrust of the sort of traditional establishment in the country. Is that going to be a big challenge for Ebrahim Raisi when he takes office?
It is definitely going to be a challenge because the thing is you have the turnout, which was very low at 48.8%. That is less than 50% of the voters actually turning out, and then you have the blank and the ballots which were spoiled ballots, absolutely, and that amounted to over 10%, and that is very, very unusual. It's true that there are always some spent ballots in an Iranian election because people fill them in themselves, but still that was 5 times the usual amount. So there is a large majority of Iranians who did not vote, who did not want to take part. And it's true that if there is, the economy is one of the elements for sure. Then there is the fact that the main reformist candidates were barred from running. But there's also the fact that a lot of people simply distrust the whole political class. A lot of people we're speaking to told us, yeah, it's not about reformist or conservative. They just say, we had Rouhani in power for 8 years. A lot of the people we spoke to said that they felt Rouhani had not fulfilled his promises, that, the 2019 crackdown on the protests was something that shocked people a lot. And they also said that basically, they said, yeah, we know, obviously, that pulling out of the GCPOA and the sanctions are not because of Rouhani, they're because of Donald Trump and his administration pulling out of the deal. But they say, still we've seen Rouhani's entourage make fortunes, dodging the sanctions. We've seen corruption, we've seen mismanagement, and this is very much what people are angry about. And this is what Raisi is going to have to try and fix. And he's going to have to try and inject cash into that economy, which is in tatters. The Iranian economy is in a very, very bad state indeed, with over 48% of inflation over the past year. There's massive unemployment. A lot of people are at risk of falling below the poverty line, according to the World Bank. So, yes, the main focus, most people, is the economy. And, yes, there is major distrust with the political class.
And how do you think Raisi is going to go about improving that economic outlook? Because relations with the West are not great, and they're unlikely to improve, we imagine, under a Raisi leadership.
Now, Raisi, for now, what he's been saying about relations with the West, there was this press conference where he said, I will not meet with Joe Biden. And also he says, that a lot of things are non-negotiable, including the missiles and the proxies in Iran and Syria. So this, of course, does not bode well for the nuclear deal. But on the other hand, you've got to remember that the West also wants to reach a deal for many reasons, one of which is the fact that with the conservatives in power, chances are Iran might just shift to Russia and China for economic help. And so the risk for the West is basically losing, an opportunity to keep business working with Iran. And that, of course, Iran has got massive oil supplies, massive gas supplies. It is a very powerful country economically if it was not under sanctions and not in this situation. So, yes, there is a game that needs to be played here, and we'll have to see how Mr. Raisi goes about this relation with the West.
All right, I think it's going to be really interesting times. Thank you very much indeed, James Andre, there, just back from his trip to Iran.